This girl was killed and had all of her teeth removed by a cartel member while on vacation in Mexico. The body of 23-year-old Lisbeth Flores was found dead in the Mexican town of Matamoros. The sad thing is, Lisbeth was a mother of 2 and was also visiting Mexico for vacation. On August 9th, 2023, Lisbeth told her mother that she would be crossing the border into Matamoros to visit her boyfriend. Lisbeth assured her mother that she would return later that evening. This wasn't her first time crossing the border, but for some reason, her decision to do it did not sit right with her mother at all. Maybe it was her instincts telling her something bad was going to happen. But regardless, she let Lisbeth go. However, when Lisbeth failed to return home that night, her mother knew something was wrong. She filed a missing persons report immediately the next morning. But tragically, the day after filing, Mexican officials discovered Lisbeth's lifeless body abandoned on a field in Matamoros. And the condition of her remains were absolutely horrific. She had been brutally assaulted and all of her teeth were removed from her mouth before she died. And the fatal injury seemed to be from a powerful blow to the head using this large rock that was discovered at the scene. Some say it was robbery, others say it was sexual assault, but no one really knows what happened exactly between Lisbeth and her killer. The good thing is the killer was arrested. Braulio Martinez was caught at his residence in connection with the murder, and after pleading no contest, he was sentenced to 14 years in prison, which many people thought wasn't a long enough sentence. This is just so sad, and due to the violence in this area, Lisbeth's mother is now without a child, and her own 2 kids are left without a mother. But luckily, local businesses stepped up by contributing funds to her children's education. As this kind gesture definitely helped, nothing will bring back their mother, Lisbeth Flores. May she rest in peace.
So here's the scoop on the top family murders. This family, no one could find them around December of 2019. Family members were asking law enforcement to do wellness check. Law enforcement showed up, knocked on the door, they didn't answer, and so they just left. Until weeks later when they come serve a warrant on this dude for fraud in his medical practice. When they show up, they find out dude has been living in his house with his entire family murdered and all sleeping together in one room. They were drugged with Benadryl, then stabbed. His wife, 13-year-old, 11-year-old, and 4-year-old. When he's first arrested, dude confesses. I don't know if he gave a reason. I've heard stories where he's like, I totally snapped and came to at the police department, but he confessed at one point. But fast forward a year, and now this slimy dude is saying that his wife drugged and killed her kids, drugged and killed herself, and now he's awaiting trial.
about to see. This was captured on the Ring doorbell of Jessica Gerald on a 2014 morning around 3 a.m. It is the only shot that we have of the man who broke into her home. For context, this is a small town right outside of Omaha, Nebraska. Like, bad things don't happen here, or so everyone thought. Unprovoked and completely without motive, the man was seen on camera around 3, and then he uses a glass scoring tool where he very quietly makes a hole in the window and then enters through the living room. So the following morning, Jessica Gerald, she doesn't go into work, so her family is contacted and they go to her home, where she is found without her head or her tongue. Media investigation was launched where the footage was eventually recovered. The man seen here had also posed her body without the head sitting up at her kitchen table.
Here are some ideas that I have for saw traps that I can't believe we haven't seen yet in any of the 10 movies. Why are we not throwing anyone into a wood chipper? I cannot believe we live in a world where the Halloween franchise threw someone into a wood chipper before Saw did. Like, you could have somebody conveyor belt style getting pushed into it. Maybe they have to make a confession before they get thrown in there. On a similar note, why have we never had a saw trap where somebody faints at the sight of their own blood and is unable to complete their trap because of it? I think this is a unique and fun concept, and I would love to see what Jigsaw would do in this situation. Would they pull them out and try again with a different test, or just let them have it? Bear with me. Some sort of cannibal saw trap. This would have to be a 2-person trap, and I'm assuming the meat that they would be using would be from somebody who failed a previous test. That way it's Jigsaw's standard of ethical cannibalism. But I don't know, the idea of someone being forced to eat someone else to show that they like appreciate their life or their body, their nutrients or something, I don't know, and then they get to escape. I don't know, I think it's a fun idea, or maybe I'm just enjoying my Hannibal rewatch way too much. I would love to see an endurance-based saw trap where it's something simple like walking on a treadmill or doing a dance, but they have to go for a very extremely long amount of time or else they die. This is definitely inspired by The Long Walk, where these boys have to walk at like 4 miles per hour for several days or else they get shot. I'm not saying it has to last days, but I don't know, quite a few hours. I think it would be an interesting idea.
A child's death was thought to be an accident until shocking text messages were revealed. It was the 15th of June 2023. Samantha Wishman was 32 years old, living in Wisconsin with her boyfriend and his 3-year-old son. Police were called to a home in Marinette on the day in question by Samantha. She reported that the 3-year-old had fallen down the stairs the night before. When officers arrived at the property, the little boy was not breathing. According to police, the father of the child seemed really frantic and wanted to get him to hospital straight away. Samantha, however, was reportedly much more calm and seemed to be trying to get the other children under control. The boy tragically passed away after being rushed to hospital. Now, initially the child's death was classed as an accident, but that's when everything started to change. Investigators determined that the death was not an accident as a result of a fall. This was after the autopsy showed that the child had broken ribs, a punctured lung, concussion and bruising on his head and body. It was determined that he died from blunt force trauma. Investigators seized Samantha's phone as part of the investigation, and what they found was truly chilling. She allegedly sent disturbing text messages to the child's dad stating, "I'm ready to hurt these mother bleep kids. Nobody bleep understands. I can't breathe. This is so much harder now that I'm having more problems breathing. These mother bleep won't bleep. Stop. I'm ready to lose my bleep. I can't breathe. I can't yell, so I'm just the joke around here." An expert claimed that the injuries on the boy's body were no accident. Samantha is now facing charges of first-degree reckless homicide and neglecting a child.
Things that bother you, they never bother me. I feel happy and fine, living in the sunlight, loving in the moonlight, having a wonderful time. Haven't got a lot, I don't need a lot, coffee's only a dime. Living in the sunlight, loving in the moonlight, having a wonderful time.
The conspiracy theories around the eclipse on Monday are getting so wild, ranging from the end of the world to a mass human sacrifice event to declaration of martial law to usher in a new world order, and even, and I'm not kidding, Jesus' return. So let's just dive into some of them. The first theory that I've seen a bunch of is the solar eclipse will begin a mass human sacrifice event. Now, a post on Reddit as well as multiple videos online say that the line from the solar eclipse of 2017 and the line from the upcoming one on April the 8th creates an X very close to the New Madrid fault line. The theory goes on to say that they, whoever they are, will use a man-made device to trigger that fault line, causing a massive earthquake, which will then be blamed on the eclipse to make it look completely natural. Number 2, Operation Balloon. This theory claims that the government, using the eclipse blackout as cover, will deploy balloons filled with poisonous gas. I mean, nighttime is a thing. Every night. Number 3, the eclipse will usher in 3 days of complete darkness. This video, which somehow got 371,000 likes on TikTok, claims that the Bible's prophecy of 3 days of darkness before Jesus' return could happen on Monday. So maybe just chuck that in your schedule for around Wednesday. Number 4, the USA will be destroyed if they don't change their evil ways. The path of the eclipse goes through 2 towns called Nineveh, and in the Bible, Jonah was sent by God to tell the town of Nineveh to change their ways and repent, or they will be destroyed. And what links this to Monday is that an eclipse took place around when Jonah arrived in Nineveh. Number 5, the government is preparing for something because the National Guard and hazmat teams were never activated for a solar eclipse before 2024. Now, the fact that local governments have issued in these measures is true, but only to manage the influx of crowds and people. And not only that, but similar preparations have been issued before. In the 2017 solar eclipse, the National Guard for Oregon was deployed. Now, it kind of goes without saying, but there's no actual evidence to support any of these theories. Only coincidences which people are inserting meaning into. But hey, April the 8th is fast approaching, so I guess we'll just wait and see.
Actually, make it faster, but just don't tuck it. It stops right there. There's a little gap there because it hit my ribs, but that's
Okay.
it.
Thank you. Now, I'm going to show, don't turn the screen on yet, please. It's going to be frame 3111, and I don't want to show it gratuitously, but I want the jury to see it. So if we could just turn it on for a second, turn it off. Yes. I don't have anything else.
Mr. Nelson?
Mr. Martin, my name's Aaron Nelson. I want to ask you some questions, okay?
Yep.
I understand watching the video and seeing the pictures is upsetting to you. Is that fair?
Yes.
I'm going to try to do it without the photos, but if you need to see one, we don't need to display it. Just let me know if you need something to refresh your memory. I'm happy to show you on my computer or some other way. I want to do this as easy as we can. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. Want to ask about some of the things that you initially...
An important new feature for those situations where you want to let a loved one know you made it back home safely. Check-in. Whether you're walking home after dark or going for an early morning run, you can start check-in with a family member or friend to let them know when you get home safely. As soon as you arrive, check-in automatically detects that you're home and lets your friend know. But if something unexpected were to happen while you're on your way, it can recognize that you're not making progress towards your destination and check in with you. And if you don't respond, it can automatically share useful information such as your current location and the route you took. And they'll also be able to see your battery level and cell service status so they know if you might be able to take their call. And any information shared with your friend is end-to-end encrypted. So that's check-in, an easy way to feel reassured that your loved ones have your back.
Florida man gets life for biting, gouging officer's eye, and streaming the entire attack on Facebook. This is 29-year-old William McClish, who will now spend his life behind bars for assaulting these two officers back in 2021 with the intent to surprise and kill them. And of course, this happened in Orlando, Florida. He was convicted yesterday, April 3rd, for a number of things: attempted first-degree murder, aggravated assault, battery on an officer, resisting an officer with violence. Just keeps adding up, and on top of that, he was streaming this on Facebook. This happened in September of 2021. He propped his phone up on the trash can and started streaming on North Magnolia and East Washington Street. As soon as the streaming happened, the two officers were in frame. McClish decided to slap one of them on the head with a brick. And of course, as the title suggests, he bit one of them and gouged one of the eyes. He also snatched one of the officers' radios off of his uniform to prevent him from calling for help. Now, he represented himself during the trial, and all he said was, "I didn't do it, the evidence was tampered with." However, obviously he streamed this whole thing live, so it wasn't. He kind of incriminated himself with that. Let me know what you guys think about this in the comment section below, and as always, these videos are for informational purposes only.
This pump served cemetery water and killed hundreds of people. Hi guys, I'm on my way to the office and it's absolutely freezing, but I wanted to show you the water pump that started an epidemic. This is Aldgate Pump, the symbolic start of the East End, where the last wolf in London was killed, and a place immortalized in Sherlock Holmes and Dickens. But most people pass by every single day and have no idea that it killed hundreds of people. The pump as it is now was built in 1876, but the well water below is ancient. And look how cute it is on the August map. It has been a trusted watering hole for Londoners likely since the Romans. But in 1860, the water was noted as tasting unusually bright, sparkling, and cool with an agreeable taste. That agreeable taste was because the water had an unusually high calcium content. But why was the water so full of calcium? Well, because the pump's water came all the way from Hampstead in North London and flowed down to the pump in East London, but not before passing through Hampstead's newly constructed cemetery, which, if you've been paying attention, we visited on our little field trip to Hampstead over the summer. The water passed through the cemetery, through the decaying bodies, collecting bacteria, germs, and that sweet, sweet calcium straight from the bones. Soon, organic matter from North London was being served up to the unsuspecting East Enders, and they started dying. In fact, hundreds died in what became known as the Aldgate Pump epidemic. Reports showed the water contained 5 times the normal quantity of solids. Personally, I would say any amount of solids is a red flag, but despite this, some people carried on drinking it anyway, until finally the pump was shut down. But hundreds of people died horrific deaths after drinking cadaver kombucha, and I will never forget that. And to be honest, this isn't even the worst water pump epidemic in London. I will link a video about the Broad Street pump below, which gave cholera to the entirety of Soho.
Oklahoma woman sentenced for shooting her 3 teen children in the head while they were sleeping. 43-year-old Amy Hall will now spend life in prison. 2 of the children died and 1 was severely injured. On March 29th, about a week ago, she was finally convicted to life in prison and 240 months for attempted murder. She pled guilty to these charges back in November of 2022, but her trial is finally finishing up here. This whole ordeal transpired on November 1st of 2018. She went into her 18-year-old son's room, shot him in the head, then her 16-year-old daughter, then her 14-year-old daughter. The 14-year-old daughter survived her injuries, but the other 2 did not. The 14-year-old was able to exit the bathroom and then retrieve the gun from her mother. I guess her mother calmed down or something. And then a car chase ensued. She reached speeds up to 110 miles an hour away from the police. This happened in Muskogee, Oklahoma. Her reasoning for the murder is because she wanted to protect her kids from her husband, who she claimed was abusive. The father, however, claimed that Amy Hall was psychologically abusive and was a danger to them and the kids. What a wild story. Let me know what you guys think about this in the comment section below. And as always, these videos are for informational purposes only.
You guys, this is so horrible. This mother went into her teenagers' bedrooms while they slept and pew-pewed them in the head. Her name's Amy Leanne Hall. She's from Okmulgee, Oklahoma. I might have said that wrong. So first she went into her 18-year-old son Kaysen's bedroom and did him. And then she went into the bedroom where both of her daughters slept. They are 14 and 16, and she did the same to them. Now, this one right here is the 16-year-old. Her name is Chloe. She was in the ICU on life support for 4 days, but then she ended up coming off. The 14-year-old survived because the bullet just grazed by her head and her neck, and she was actually able to escape into the bathroom and then convince her mom to hand over the weapon. Police were called out to the scene that morning around 6:30 a.m. by Kaysen's friend, who was staying the night and was sleeping in the same room as him. According to the reports, after she did it, she took off. There was a 4-mile-long high-speed chase where she was going 110 miles an hour. But they were finally able to get her into custody. She originally told police that she didn't even realize what she had done. But then she told them that she was protecting her kids from her estranged husband, who she claimed was really abusive. She said she thought she was saving them. Apparently, they had been in a really bitter custody battle for almost 2 years. She also told police that the plan was to unalive the 3 kids and then herself, but missing the 14-year-old interfered with all of that. Now, this all happened on November 1st, 2018. She pleaded guilty on November 28th, 2022. Apparently, sometime in between those years, she attempted to take her own life while in jail. So that caused things to get delayed. She just received her sentence on Monday for life in prison for the 2 counts of murder, plus an additional 240 months in prison for the attempted murder of her 14-year-old Nicole. I'll never understand why parents go through custody battles and do that to their kids. And I can't imagine how traumatic that must have been for Kaysen's friend.
This is one of the worst cases in human history. This is the murder of Christine Silawan. She was from the Philippines and was a volunteer in church, and she used the church every day from 4 to 6 p.m. On the day of her murder, she went to church as per her schedule, but she didn't come home after that. Her parents then started to worry, and they began searching for her with their neighbors. And what they found is absolutely horrid. They found her body in a farm where half her face was sliced like a piece of pizza, and her face was literally skinned down to her skull. Also, her brain was completely destroyed by acid. The police then started investigating, and they checked the cameras and found out that she was with a guy. The people started protesting about this case, and the case was then given to special officers. They had a lot of pressure on this. A week before this happened, she broke up with her boyfriend, so the police took him into custody, and he was proving that he was at home all day when she was murdered, but officers were completely tired of this case, and they then sentenced him as the murderer. But after a few months, a thief was caught in a store where he confessed that he murdered and raped Christine. He said he started talking to her on Facebook with a fake account and was using fake photos of another guy that was pretty good looking. Christine fell for the guy, and she assumed that he was about 20 years old, and they started texting daily. One day, they both decided to meet up at 6 p.m. near the church she went to. But upon arriving, Christine noticed that this was not the guy she was talking to, and he was around 40-ish years old. She then refused to talk to him and tried to go back, but he held her hands extremely forcefully. He then took her far away from town and raped her repeatedly and put iron rods inside her personal organs. He then cut her face in half and then skinned her whole head down to the skull. And to make it even worse, he put acid inside of her head. The autopsy also revealed that her tongue, trachea, esophagus, parts of her neck, and her right ear were missing. The self-proclaimed killer of this case, named Renato Lanis, said that he used barber-type scissors and stabbed her 30 times on different parts of her body and skinned her face. Christine Silawan was only 16 years old, and this case is extremely haunting. There's a picture of her body that was found in the field, but Google did a really good job of not showing it and hiding it. So even if you do go looking for the picture, I don't think you're going to find it. This is one of those cases that after you get done reading it, you just feel some sort of uneasiness. I feel so bad for Christine's family, and I can't imagine finding my daughter in this state. May Christine Silawan rest in peace.
Terrifying facts you never knew. If your immune system ever found out that you have eyeballs, you would go blind. Which means right now your immune system has no clue that you can see. Because if it did, they would attack your eyeballs until you could no longer ever see. This is because your eyeballs have a protein in them called crystalline that doesn't exist anywhere else in your body. So if your immune system found out and checked them out, it would be like, something's wrong here. Studies show that most serial killers are born in November. Today's high school students have the same anxiety levels as insane asylum patients had in the 1950s. I'm not gonna lie to y'all, my anxiety might be up there too. There's a disease called fatal familial insomnia, where people suddenly one day lose their ability to fall asleep, which leads them to slowly go insane. They can't distinguish dreams from reality anymore and go into some type of paranoia. It becomes so severe that they eventually die. Those that make it to the final stage and don't die usually end up in a vegetated state, no longer conscious. And it can happen to any one of you. About 3,000 people go missing every year in the United States. The last execution by guillotine was in 1977. This was in France. And also that was the same year the first Star Wars movie came out. You are always 6 minutes away from death, but breathing resets the clock. In 2011, Anatoly Yakovlevich was arrested for having 12 dolls in his apartment. Only problem is, they weren't normal dolls. They were recently deceased little girls that had been dug up and dressed to be put on display. In 2012, a Burger King employee anonymously posted this to 4chan. It said, "This is the lettuce you eat at Burger King." It only took 20 minutes for people to track down the branch that he worked at, and he was fired. You really never know what people are doing to your food. H.H. Holmes was a serial killer who built a torture hotel in the 19th century. He had secret rooms with gas chambers, trap doors, and stairs that led to nowhere. He loved to play with his victims' minds. It was almost like a real-life Saw movie. There's a bridge in Scotland called the Overtoun Bridge, and for some reason, dogs keep jumping off of it at the same spot. Yeah, they just jump to their deaths. Experts can't figure out why either. Some people speculate it's a magnetic field or maybe a frequency that only they can hear, but others believe it's something supernatural. But whatever is making dogs jump off that bridge to their deaths is still to this day unexplained. Joe Matheny was an infamous serial killer who not only cooked his victims to eat for himself, but also made them into burgers using their remains. He then sold them to unsuspecting customers from a roadside food stand. We really never know what we eating. I'm cooking all my food myself. That's why I don't eat over people's house. In 2021, a new homeowner was shocked to find a boarded up wall. When he ripped the boards off the wall, he discovered a hole. In that hole was a doll clutching a note. The note saying that she killed a family who lived there in the 1960s. Be honest, would you move out? In 1978, there was a pilot named Frederick Valentin. Him and his plane disappeared in Australia. His last communication was, "Melbourne, that strange aircraft is hovering above me again." It is hovering and it is not an aircraft. This is a mugshot of William West and William West. Oh, and they're not related at all, but they were both sent to Leavenworth Prison at the exact same time in 1903. And after some confusion, the staff finally figured it out. They were two different people who had the exact same name and looked identical. This was said to be one of the main reasons why we now use fingerprints to identify somebody. There's biotech being developed as we speak that can make prisoners feel they are serving an 1,000-year sentence in a matter of 8 hours. That's horrifying. Imagine thinking you spent 1,000 years somewhere, and then when you wake up and snap out of it, you realize that it was only a couple hours. Do you know how crazy that is? Anyways, like this video if you want a part 2.